One slip of paper. That's all it took to change the hierarchy of the Chicago underworld. Imagine holding the life of the city's most dangerous man in the palm of your hand, knowing that saving him means signing your own death warrant. Rachel Vance thought she was just serving drinks to a ghost. She didn't know that by sliding that napkin across the bar, 7 words scrawled in red ink, she wasn't just stopping a murder, she was starting a war. And when the capo doesn't just take the advice, but takes her instead, that's when the real danger begins. Sit back. This isn't a fairy tale. This is the poisoned vow. The air inside Obsidian always smelled of expensive leather, stale secrets and fear masked by cologne. It was the kind of private club where the music thumped deep in your chest, a low rhythmic bass designed to drown out gunshots if the need ever arose. Rachel Vance polished the mahogany surface of the bar until she could see the reflection of her own tired eyes. Hazel. Wide, watchful, always watchful. For 3 years she had been a ghost in this city. She spoke little, worked hard, and made the best old-fashioned in Chicago. She was invisible. Until tonight. The atmosphere in the club shifted at exactly 11:15 p.m. It wasn't a sound. It was a pressure drop. The temperature seemed to plummet as the heavy double doors swung open. Lorenzo Enzo Moretti walked in. Rachel had seen photos of him in the papers, usually blurry shots of him leaving a courthouse or entering a funeral, but the grainy pixels didn't do justice to the terrifying reality of the man. He was tall, over 6'3", wearing a suit that cost more than Rachel's entire life savings. His hair was dark, swept back, and his eyes were the color of a stormy sea, cold gray and utterly devoid of mercy. He didn't look like a gangster. He looked like a king who had grown bored of executions. He moved toward the VIP booth in the far corner, the one reserved for the family. Flanking him were 4 men. Rachel recognized the one on his right, Luca, big bald with a scar running through his eyebrow. He was Enzo's shadow, his head of security. Rachel kept her head down, grabbing a bottle of Campari. Don't look, just pour. Negroni, Sbagliato, extra orange peel. A voice grunted. It was Luca. He had approached the bar while Enzo settled into the booth. Coming right up, Rachel said, her voice steady. She had trained herself to suppress the tremors. She prepared the glass, the ice clinking softly. She reached for the vermouth. As she turned her back to grab the Prosecco, she saw it in the reflection of the mirror behind the bar. It happened in a fraction of a second. Luca, the loyal dog, the right-hand man, slipped a hand into his jacket pocket. He pulled out a tiny vial no bigger than a thimble. With a sleight of hand that would have fooled anyone, not hyper-vigilant, he uncorked it and tipped a fine, colorless powder into the glass waiting on the bar rail. The glass meant for Lorenzo Moretti. Rachel froze. Her heart hammered against her ribs like a trapped bird. He's killing him. The bodyguard is killing the boss. If she said nothing, Enzo Moretti would be dead in 10 minutes. The power vacuum would tear Chicago apart. But if she spoke, if she screamed, Luca would put a bullet in her brain before the word poison left her lips. She turned back around her face, a mask of indifference. She poured the Prosecco. The bubbles rose, mixing with the powder, dissolving it instantly. Here you go, she said, sliding the drink toward Luca. Luca nodded, his eyes flat. He picked up the glass and walked back toward the booth, where Enzo sat, checking his phone, completely unaware that his executioner was bringing him a drink. Rachel's mind raced. Walk away, Rachel. You're in witness protection. You are a nobody. If you get involved, they will find you. But she looked at Enzo. She saw the exhaustion in his posture, and beneath that, she saw a man who was surrounded by wolves. She couldn't let it happen. She grabbed a cocktail napkin. She snatched a red pen from her apron. With a shaking hand, she scribbled 7 words. She folded it, small, hiding it under a coaster. She grabbed a glass of water. "Excuse me," she said, stepping out from behind the bar. "Table service." She walked toward the VIP booth. The security guards tensed, but Luca waved her through. "Just water," he muttered, setting the poisoned Negroni down in front of Enzo. Enzo didn't look up. He reached for the drink. His fingers brushed the cold glass. "Water for the table, sir," Rachel said. Her voice was low, sultry, designed to make men look at her face, not her hands. She set the water down, and then she slid the coaster with the folded napkin directly under Enzo's hand, pressing her fingertips against his knuckles for a split second. The contact was electric. Enzo froze. He looked up. For the first time, he saw her. Really saw her. Rachel held his gaze. Her eyes were pleading, terrified. She tapped the napkin once with her index finger, then stepped back. Enzo's eyes narrowed. He was a predator. He sensed shifts in behavior. He didn't lift the drink. Instead, he unfolded the napkin in his lap, shielding it from Luca's view. He read the red scrawl, "Don't drink it. Smile and leave now." Enzo Moretti didn't flinch. His heart rate didn't spike. He slowly refolded the napkin and placed it in his pocket. Then he did exactly what she asked. He smiled. It was a terrifying, shark-like grin that didn't reach his eyes. "You know, Luca," Enzo said, his voice a deep rumble that vibrated through the table. "I'm not feeling the Negroni tonight. I think I need fresh air." He stood up abruptly. Luca blinked, confused. "Boss, you haven't touched it." "I said I want air," Enzo commanded. He turned to leave. Rachel let out a breath she didn't know she was holding. She turned to go back to the bar, to disappear into the kitchen and run out the back door. She had done her good deed. Now she had to vanish before Luca realized what had happened. She took 2 steps. Suddenly, a hand, large, hot, and rough, clamped around her wrist like a manacle. She gasped, spinning around. Enzo Moretti was there. He wasn't leaving alone. He was looking down at her, his grip bruisingly tight. "Where do you think you're going?" He whispered, his voice low enough that only she could hear. I have to work," she stammered. "No," Enzo said, pulling her flush against his chest. The scent of sandalwood and gunpowder overwhelmed her. "You just saved my life, or you just tried to kidnap me. Either way, you're coming with me. Boss?" Luca stepped forward, his hand drifting toward his gun. "Who is the girl?" Enzo looked at Luca. The smile was gone. "She's my new favorite thing, Luca. Get the car." Enzo dragged her toward the exit. Rachel stumbled, trying to pry his fingers off. "Let me go. You don't understand. I can't be seen with you." "Too late," Enzo growled as he kicked the doors of obsidian open. "You're in the game now, sweetheart, and nobody leaves the game." The Chicago night air was biting a mix of freezing rain and exhaust fumes. Enzo didn't stop moving. He practically marched Rachel toward the idling black SUV at the curb. "Get in," he ordered, shoving her into the back seat. "Please," Rachel begged, her hands trembling. "I just wanted to help. I don't want money. Just let me go." Enzo ignored her. He climbed in beside her. Luca slid into the driver's seat, and another guard, a man named Dante, took the passenger side. The door slammed shut, sealing them in a soundproof leather cage. "Drive," Enzo said. The warehouse on the docks, not the house. Luca's eyes flickered in the rearview mirror. The warehouse boss that's 30 minutes out. The house is safer. Did I ask for your opinion, Luca? Enzo's voice was soft, silken, and terrifying. No, boss. The car peeled away from the curb. Rachel pressed herself against the door, trying to make herself as small as possible. She watched the city lights blur past. She was trapped in a moving metal box with the Don of the Chicago outfit and the man who had just tried to kill him. Enzo turned to her. In the dim streetlights passing by his face was a landscape of sharp angles and shadows. He reached into his pocket and pulled out the napkin. "Tell me," he said, holding the paper up. "How did you know?" Rachel swallowed hard. She couldn't tell him the truth. She couldn't tell him that she was Rachel Vance, formerly Dr. Rachel Corvus, a toxicologist who had testified against the wrong cartel in Miami 3 years ago. She couldn't tell him that she knew what cyanide powder looked like because she had spent years studying it. "I saw him," she whispered. "I saw him put something in your drink." "Who?" Enzo asked. Rachel's eyes darted to the rearview mirror. Luca was watching them. His gaze was murderous. He knew. He had put 2 and 2 together. The girl at the bar. The sudden exit. "Don't look at him," Enzo commanded, grabbing her chin and forcing her to look at him. "Look at me. Who put it in?" "If I say it, I'm dead," she hissed. "If you don't say it." Enzo leaned in his lips, brushing her ear. "I'll throw you out of this moving car, and I promise you the pavement is less forgiving than I am." Rachel squeezed her eyes shut. "The driver. Luca." Enzo leaned back. He didn't look surprised. He didn't look angry. He looked validated. "I suspected," Enzo murmured. "He's been spending too much money lately, buying things a bodyguard can't afford, gambling debts disappearing overnight." "Boss," Luca called out from the front. "Everything okay back there?" "Fine, Luca," Enzo said. "Just getting to know our new friend." Enzo reached under his seat. Rachel heard the metallic click of a slide being racked. She stopped breathing. "Luca," Enzo said, his voice conversational. "Pull over." "Here." "We're on the bridge, boss." "Pull over." The car swerved slightly, slowing down on the shoulder of the desolate industrial bridge overlooking the Chicago River. The car stopped. "Dante," Enzo said to the passenger. "Get out. Check the tires." Dante, confused, exited the vehicle. "Luca," Enzo said. "Turn around." Luca turned in his seat, a forced smile on his face. "Boss, I don't think." Enzo raised the suppressed pistol and fired twice. Thwip! Thwip! 2 holes appeared in Luca's chest. The bodyguard slumped against the steering wheel dead before he realized the game was up. Rachel screamed, clapping her hands over her mouth. The sound was muffled by the thick glass. Enzo didn't blink. He holstered the gun and looked at her. The violence was so casual, so practiced, it made her blood run cold. "Open the door," Enzo told her. "Are you going to kill me?" Rachel cried, tears streaming down her face. "I saved you, I saved you, and you just—" "I'm not going to kill you," Enzo said, his voice surprisingly gentle. He reached over, unbuckled her seatbelt, and pushed the door open. "Dante, drag this piece of trash out. You drive." Dante, pale and shaking, hauled Luca's body out of the driver's seat and dumped it over the bridge railing. A splash echoed from the dark water below. Enzo climbed into the front seat, then looked back at Rachel. She was shivering, traumatized, curled into a ball. "Get up here," he ordered. "What for?" "Front seat. Now. I don't like being a chauffeur." Rachel scrambled over the center console, terrified to be left alone in the back, terrified to be near him. She sat in the passenger seat, pulling her knees to her chest. Enzo put the car in gear. He accelerated the tires, screeching. "Who are you?" Enzo asked, his eyes on the road. "And don't tell me you're a bartender. A bartender sees a powder and thinks it's drugs. You saw a powder and knew it was lethal. You knew I had to leave now. You reacted like a soldier, not a civilian." Rachel stayed silent. "I can find out," Enzo warned. "I have people who can dig up the past of a ghost, but it will go easier for you if you tell me." "My name is Rachel," she whispered. "That's all you get?" Enzo glanced at her. The dashboard lights illuminated the fear in her eyes, but also a steel spine of defiance. He liked that. "Rachel." He tested the name. "Well, Rachel, you just saved the life of the capo of the Chicago outfit. By ancient law, that means I owe you a debt." "I don't want your debt. I want to go home." "You can't go home," Enzo said, taking a sharp turn toward the outskirts of the city. "Luca wasn't working alone. Someone paid him. Someone powerful. And now you're the only witness. If I let you go, you'll be dead by morning." "So what happens now?" she asked, her voice breaking. Enzo reached over and placed his hand on her knee. His grip was possessive heavy. "Now, we go to my safe house. We find out who paid Luca. We kill them." He paused, glancing at her lips. "And you stay by my side every second of every day until I say otherwise. You're mine now, Rachel. Try to run, and I'll find you. Try to hide, and I'll burn the city down to get you back." Rachel looked out the window at the passing darkness. She had spent 3 years running from a cartel only to run straight into the arms of the Mafia. But as she looked at Enzo's profile, the sharp jaw, the lethal focus, she realized something terrifying. She felt safer in this car with a murderer than she had felt in 3 years of freedom. "Where are we going?" she asked softly. Enzo smirked. "To hell, sweetheart. But don't worry, I'm the devil. I know the way." The drive to the safe house was a blur of rain-slicked asphalt and suffocating silence. Enzo didn't speak. He drove with one hand on the wheel, the other resting near the gear shift, close enough to brush against Rachel's thigh every time he changed gears. It wasn't accidental. It was a constant territorial reminder: I am here. You are here. There is nowhere else. They left the industrial decay of the city behind, winding up a narrow private road that snaked along the jagged cliffs overlooking Lake Michigan. The safe house wasn't a house. It was a fortress of concrete and glass cantilevered over the dark, churning water below. It looked like a villain's lair from a movie, cold, imposing, and utterly impenetrable. Enzo pulled the SUV into a subterranean garage that smelled of damp earth and raw gasoline. The heavy metal gate rattled shut behind them, sealing out the world. "Out," Enzo commanded, his voice echoing in the concrete cavern. Rachel's legs felt like lead. She stepped out, the cold air biting through her thin bartender's uniform. She hugged her arms around herself, shivering violently. It wasn't just the cold. It was the adrenaline crash. The reality of what she had done was settling in like a heavy stone in her gut. She had interfered. She was exposed. Enzo bypassed the elevator. He took her arm firmly but not painfully and led her up a spiral steel staircase. His grip was an anchor. Without it, she felt she might float away or collapse entirely. They emerged into a sprawling living area. The walls were floor-to-ceiling glass, offering a panoramic view of the storm raging over the lake. Lightning cracked in the distance, illuminating the room in harsh strobe light flashes. A black leather sofa, a grand piano that looked like it had never been played, and a liquor cabinet stocked with bottles that cost more than a car. "Sit," Enzo said, pointing to the sofa. Rachel sat on the edge of the cushion, her spine rigid. "What happens now?" Enzo didn't answer immediately. He walked to the liquor cabinet. He poured 2 fingers of amber liquid into a crystal tumbler. He didn't pour one for her. He took a slow sip, the ice clinking his back to her. "Now," Enzo said, turning around slowly. The storm outside cast his face in shadow, making his eyes gleam like polished steel. "Now we stop playing games. You knew it was aconite." Rachel froze. I didn't say that." "You didn't have to." Enzo walked toward her, his movements predatory, silent on the plush rug. He stopped right in front of her, his knees brushing hers. He loomed over her, a tower of expensive wool and raw violence. The way Luca poured it, the dosage, a white powder that dissolves instantly in Prosecco without clouding. Cyanide smells like almonds. A trained nose would catch it. Arsenic is too slow. But aconite wolfsbane. It causes heart arrhythmia. Mimics a heart attack, clean, untraceable to the untrained eye. He leaned down, placing a hand on the back of the sofa, boxing her in. His face was inches from hers. She could smell the whiskey on his breath, mixed with the metallic scent of rain. "A bartender doesn't know that Rachel," he whispered. "A bartender knows how to mix a margarita. A bartender doesn't spot a microgram assassination attempt from 10 feet away in a dark club." Rachel looked away, her heart hammering against her ribs. "I read a lot. Don't lie to me." His voice dropped an octave, vibrating in her chest. "Lying is an insult to my intelligence, and I have a very short temper for insults." He reached out his fingers, grazing her jawline, tilting her face back to look at him. His touch was hot, rough, sending a jolt of electricity straight to her core. "Who are you really?" Rachel stared into his eyes. She saw death there, but she also saw curiosity, a hunger for the truth. She realized then that he wouldn't kill her, not yet. She was a puzzle, and men like Enzo Moretti couldn't resist a puzzle. "My name is Dr. Rachel Corvez," she said, the words tasting like ash. She hadn't spoken her real name in 3 years. "I was a forensic toxicologist for the state of Florida." Enzo's eyebrows rose slightly, a flicker of recognition. "Corvus, the cartel witness. You know, I make it my business to know everyone who is hunted," Enzo murmured. He straightened up, withdrawing his warmth, leaving her suddenly cold. "The Calavera cartel put a $500,000 bounty on your head after you identified their signature poison in a judge's autopsy. You disappeared 3 years ago. The feds said you died in a car accident." "The feds lied," Rachel said bitterly. "They couldn't protect me. So I ran. I became Rachel Vance. I poured drinks and kept my head down. Until tonight." Enzo took another sip of his whiskey, watching her over the rim of the glass. He looked like he was appraising a piece of art or a weapon. "You traded one cartel for another," he mused. "You saved my life, Doctor. That complicates things. If the Calavera find out you're alive, they'll come for you. If my enemies find out you saved me, they'll come for you to finish the job." "So let me go," Rachel pleaded. "I can disappear again. I'm good at it." "No," Enzo said sharply. He set the glass down on a glass coffee table with a definitive clack. "You're not going anywhere. You are a loose end, Rachel. But you are also useful. Useful. You have eyes that see things my men miss," Enzo said. He walked around the sofa, pacing behind her. "Luca was my head of security. If he turned, the rot goes deep. I don't know who I can trust. My food, my drink, the air in my own house. Everything is suspect now." He paused behind her, leaning down so his mouth was right next to her ear. She could feel the heat radiating from him. "You are going to be my personal taster," he whispered. "My canary in the coal mine. You will eat what I eat. drink what I drink. You will watch every shadow in the room. And in exchange, Rachel breathed, her voice trembling. In exchange, I offer you the only thing the feds couldn't, Enzo said. Absolute protection. Under my roof, inside my circle, you are untouchable. The Calavera cartel wouldn't dare scratch the paint on your car if they knew you belonged to Enzo Moretti. He walked around to face her again, extending a hand. It was a large, calloused hand, a hand that had ended lives, now offering her a lifeline. So, Dr. Corves, do we have a deal? Or do you want to take your chances with the wolves outside? Rachel looked at his hand. She looked at the storm raging against the glass. She thought of the lonely nights, the constant looking over her shoulder, the fear of every footstep behind her. She looked up at Enzo. He was a monster. She knew that. But he was a monster who owned the dark. Slowly, hesitantly, she reached out and placed her hand in his. His fingers closed around hers, engulfing her hand completely. Good, Enzo said. A small, dangerous smile played on his lips. You look exhausted. There's a bedroom down the hall. Second door on the left. There are clothes in the closet. Shower. Sleep. We have a lot of work to do tomorrow. What's happening tomorrow? Rachel asked, standing up. Her legs still shaky. Enzo's eyes darkened. Tomorrow we go hunting. Someone paid Luca to kill me. Tomorrow we're going to find out who. He watched her walk down the hallway. Rachel could feel his gaze on her back, heavy and physical, until she turned the corner and the heavy oak door of the bedroom clicked shut behind her. She locked it. Then she leaned against the wood and slid to the floor, burying her face in her hands. She was safe. She was trapped. She was alive. And God help her, she could still feel the phantom heat of his fingers on her skin. The morning sun did not bring warmth to the safe house. It only illuminated the cold, hard edges of Enzo Moretti's world. Rachel woke to the sound of rain lashing against the floor-to-ceiling glass. On the foot of the bed lay a garment bag and a shoebox placed there with the silent precision of a phantom. Inside was a weapon disguised as a dress emerald green silk, backless, with a neckline that plunged dangerously low. Beside it, black stilettos with heels sharp enough to puncture a lung. She dressed in silence. The silk felt like water against her skin, a second layer of armor. When she looked in the mirror, the terrified bartender was gone. Staring back was a woman who looked like she belonged in the viper's nest. She found Enzo on the terrace. He was staring out at the grey turbulence of Lake Michigan, a cup of espresso in his hand. He wore a tuxedo that fit him with criminal perfection, the black fabric absorbing the light, making his pale skin and dark eyes appear even more striking. He turned as he heard her approach. For a moment his mask slipped. His eyes traveled from the hem of her dress to her eyes dark and hungry. It wasn't just approval. It was a claim. "Come here," he said, his voice rough. Rachel approached the railing. The wind whipped her hair, but she stood her ground. "Tonight is the Red Charity Gala at the Art Institute," Enzo said, handing her a velvet box. "Neutral ground. Everyone will be there. The politicians who take my money, the judges who ignore my cases, and the person who tried to kill me." Rachel opened the box. Inside sat a diamond ring, a solitaire so large it looked vulgar, yet cut with such precision it was mesmerizing. "Put it on," Enzo commanded. Rachel hesitated. "Enzo, You are not my employee tonight, Rachel. You are my fiancé." He interrupted, his gaze intense. "It explains why you are at my side. It explains why I will not let anyone within 3 feet of you. And it will make our enemies nervous. They expect a grieving, paranoid man. Instead, I will give them a king celebrating his engagement." Rachel slid the ring onto her finger. It was heavy. It felt like a shackle. "And my job?" she asked. "You are a toxicologist, Dr. Corvez. You see things others miss," Enzo said, stepping closer until his chest brushed against hers. He reached out, tucking a stray lock of hair behind her ear. His fingers lingered on her neck, right over her pulse. "Watch their hands. Watch their eyes. Watch the drinks. If you see death coming, you tell me. And if I'm wrong, then we make a scene." Enzo smirked, a cruel, beautiful expression. "But you won't be wrong. You want to survive this night as much as I do." The Art Institute of Chicago was transformed into a cathedral of excess. The air inside smelled of expensive perfume, old money and desperation. A string quartet played something hauntingly beautiful in the corner, the melody fighting to be heard over the murmur of Chicago's elite. Enzo's hand was a warm weight on the small of Rachel's back as they walked through the grand entrance. He guided her, not like a date, but like a handler. Every muscle in his body was coiled ready to strike, though his face remained a mask of bored arrogance. "Smile," he whispered in her ear, his breath hot. "They are all watching. Let them envy us." Rachel forced a smile. She scanned the room, her eyes darting from face to face. She analyzed the crowd, not as people, but as chemical equations. Who was sweating too much? Who had pupils pinned from opiates? Who was holding their glass with a tremor? "There," Enzo murmured. The crowd parted. A man approached them, flanked by 2 younger associates, who looked more like linebackers than socialites. It was Salvatore Uncle Sal Moretti. Rachel recognized the power dynamic instantly. Sal was older, his face a road map of deep lines and sun-damaged skin, but he moved with a vitality that belied his age. He walked with a cane, but he didn't lean on it. He carried it like a scepter. "Lorenzo," Sal rasped his voice, sounding like gravel crunching under tires. He stopped 3 feet away, his dark reptilian eyes flicking over Enzo before landing heavily on Rachel. "We were not expecting you. Rumors said you were under the weather." "You know me, Uncle," Enzo said, smoothly pulling Rachel closer to his side. "I have a strong constitution, and I had a reason to celebrate." Enzo lifted Rachel's hand, displaying the massive diamond under the chandelier's light. "Allow me to introduce Rachel," Enzo announced, his voice carrying to the nearby tables. "My future wife." The silence that followed was deafening. Rachel felt the shock wave ripple through the circle of onlookers. Sal's smile didn't waver, but his eyes went flat and dead. "A fiancé," Sal said, prolonging the word as if it tasted sour. "You work fast, nephew. I didn't know you had a heart to give." "Rachel found it," Enzo said, looking down at her with a fabricated tenderness that made her knees weak. For a second, she forgot it was a lie. "She saved me in more ways than one." Sal stepped forward. He reached for Rachel's free hand. "Charmed, my dear. Welcome to the family." Rachel let him take her hand. His skin was dry like parchment. He raised her hand to his lips for a kiss, a traditional old-world gesture. As he bent his head, Rachel's training kicked in. She didn't look at his face. She looked at his hands. On his right pinky finger, Sal wore a large, antique gold ring. To a layman, it was just gaudy jewelry. But Rachel saw the mechanism. The bezel of the ring was raised slightly too high. There was a tiny, almost invisible discoloration on the side of the setting, a hinge. A poisoner's ring. It was a relic from the Renaissance, designed to hold a small reservoir of powder or liquid. A flick of the thumb would open the catch, allowing the wearer to sprinkle death into a drink while passing it, or in more intimate settings, release a contact poison. Her breath hitched. She pulled her hand back, perhaps a fraction too sharply. Sal straightened his eyes, narrowing. He had felt her flinch. "Is something wrong, my dear?" Sal asked softly. "No." Rachel lied, her heart hammering against her ribs like a trapped bird. "Just overwhelmed by your kindness." "Kindness is a rare currency in our world," Sal said. He turned to a passing waiter. "Champagne for the happy couple. I want to propose a toast." The waiter presented a tray. Sal reached out. His hand hovered over the flutes. Rachel watched his thumb. It moved, a micro-movement. Click. It was silent, but she saw the tiny hinge on his ring shift. A microscopic amount of dust, invisible in the dim amber light, drifted down into the two glasses nearest to him. Sal picked up those two glasses. He turned to Enzo and Rachel, a benevolent smile on his face. "Here," Sal said, extending the poisoned chalices. "To long life." Time seemed to slow down. Enzo reached for the glass. "No." Rachel didn't think. She reacted. She slapped the glass out of Sal's hand. Crystal shattered against the marble floor. The sound was as loud as a gunshot in the hushed hall. Champagne foamed over the polished stone. The room gasped. "She's hysterical!" Sal shouted immediately, playing the part of the offended elder. "Lorenzo, control your woman!" Enzo looked at the shattered glass, then at Rachel. He saw the terror in her eyes. He didn't question her. He didn't hesitate. He looked at Sal. "You offered us death, Uncle." "I offered you a toast," Sal roared, stepping back as his two bodyguards moved forward, hands reaching inside their jackets. "It's in the ring," Rachel screamed, pointing at Sal's hand. "Don't let him touch you. The ring is loaded." The accusation hung in the air. Sal's face twisted from shock to pure, unadulterated malice. He knew the game was up. "Kill them," Sal commanded. The masquerade was over. Enzo moved with blurring speed. He didn't reach for a gun, there were too many civilians. Instead, he grabbed the heavy silver champagne bucket from the nearest table and swung it with bone-breaking force into the face of the first bodyguard. The man went down in a spray of blood and ice. "Rachel, run!" Enzo roared, grabbing her wrist. Chaos erupted. Guests screamed and trampled over one another. Gunshots popped crack, crack, tearing through the expensive decor. Enzo didn't let go of her. He dragged her through the panicked mob, using his body as a shield. They scrambled over overturned tables, slipping on spilled wine and broken glass. "The kitchen!" Enzo yelled. "Go!" They burst through the swinging service doors, startling a brigade of chefs. Enzo shoved a rolling cart of hot pans behind them to block the door. "The back alley." He panted, his tuxedo torn blood. Not his own, splattered on his white shirt. "My car won't be there. Sal will have neutralized the driver." "Then where?" Rachel cried. She had kicked off her heels and was running barefoot, the emerald dress ruined. "We disappear," Enzo said grimly. He looked at her, his eyes blazing with adrenaline. "You wanted to know what it's like to be mine, Rachel. This is it. No safety, no peace. Just us against the world." He kicked the rear exit door open. The cold Chicago night hit them like a physical blow. "Keep moving," Enzo ordered, pulling her into the shadows of the alleyway. "If we stop, we die." Rachel looked back one last time at the Art Institute, the golden lights now flickering like a dying fire. She had walked in as a fake fiancé. She was running out as a partner in a war. She tightened her grip on Enzo's hand. Lead the way, she whispered. The city of Chicago changed when you looked at it from the bottom. From the penthouse, it was a grid of amber jewels. From the alleyway, it was a labyrinth of wet brick, rotting garbage and shadows that swallowed you whole. Enzo and Rachel ran until their lungs burned. They navigated the maze of the service districts, moving away from the sirens, away from the light. Enzo moved with a limp now, his breathing ragged. During the escape, a stray bullet had grazed his thigh, or perhaps he had torn something leaping from the loading dock. The adrenaline masked the specifics, but the blood soaking his tuxedo trousers was real enough. "We need to stop," Rachel gasped, pulling him to a halt under the rusted awning of a closed laundromat. The rain was torrential now, washing away the glamour of the gala, leaving them shivering and exposed. "You're bleeding, Enzo." "I'm fine," Enzo grunted, leaning heavily against the brick wall. His face was pale, his hair plastered to his forehead. He checked the clip of his gun. 2 rounds left. Sal will have dogs out. We need a car." "No car," Rachel said, her voice shaking but firm. "They'll be watching the plates. They'll be watching the traffic cams. We need to go somewhere they won't look." Enzo looked at her. The adrenaline was fading, leaving behind a cold, sharp clarity. "I have safe houses, but Sal knows my patterns. He taught me my patterns." "Then we go to my world," Rachel said. She led him 3 blocks south to a tenement building that looked like it had been condemned in the 80s. The front door was boarded up, but Rachel went to the side counting the bricks until she found a loose one. She pulled a rusted key from a magnetic box hidden behind it. "What is this?" Enzo asked, eyeing the dark, gaping maw of the basement entrance. "Insurance," Rachel whispered. "When I ran from the cartel, I rented 3 apartments in 3 different cities under dead names, paid in cash 10 years up front, just in case." They descended into the darkness. The air inside was stale, smelling of old paper and silence. They climbed 3 flights of creaking stairs to apartment 3B. Rachel unlocked the door. The apartment was a time capsule. A thin layer of grey dust coated everything. The cheap laminate table, the sleeper sofa, the empty bookshelves. It was a tomb for a life she never lived. "Sit," Rachel commanded, pointing to the sofa. She locked the door, sliding the deadbolt and wedging a chair under the handle. She went to the small kitchenette. There was no electricity, but the moonlight filtering through the grimy window provided enough illumination. She opened a cabinet and pulled out a heavy plastic box, a first aid kit. Not a standard drugstore kit, but a trauma kit she had assembled herself. Surgical spirits, sutures, adrenaline, sterile gauze. She returned to Ian. He had taken off his jacket and unbuttoned his ruined shirt. He sat with his head back, eyes closed, his chest rising and falling in a slow, pained rhythm. The tattoos on his chest, black ink scars of wolves and thorns, seemed to move with his breath. Rachel knelt between his legs. The intimacy of the position was immediate and overwhelming. "I need to cut the pants," she said softly. Enzo opened his eyes. They were dark pools stripping her bare. These were Italian bespoke. "Now they're kindling," she replied. She used medical shears to cut the fabric away from his thigh. The wound was ugly, a deep gash where a bullet had ploughed a furrow through the muscle, but it hadn't hit the artery. "It needs stitches." She assessed, her voice clinical, though her hands trembled slightly as she touched his skin. "I don't have anesthesia." "I don't need it," Enzo murmured. He watched her. He didn't look at the wound. He looked at her face. "You have steady hands, Dottoressa." "Don't call me that," she said, pouring alcohol over the wound. Enzo hissed through his teeth, his hands gripping the edge of the sofa until his knuckles turned white. His body went rigid cords of muscle standing out in his neck. But he didn't pull away. Rachel threaded the needle. "Talk to me," she said. "Distract yourself." "Sal." Enzo gritted out his voice, strained as the needle pierced his skin. "He's been planning this for months, maybe years. The poisoner's ring. That's old school. Sicilian style. He thinks I'm too modern. Too soft." "You're not soft," Rachel said, tying off the first stitch. She wiped a bead of sweat from his brow with her thumb. "I let him get close," Enzo countered bitterly. "I let him breathe the same air as you." Rachel paused. She looked up at him. The room was silent save for the rain drumming against the window and the ragged sound of their breathing. "Why did you trust me?" she asked. "In the club. I could have been lying. I could have been working for him." Enzo leaned forward. The pain seemed forgotten. He reached out his hand, cupping her cheek. His thumb traced the line of her jaw. "Because," he whispered, "I saw your eyes when you looked at the poison. You were terrified, Rachel. But not for yourself. You were terrified for me. Nobody has ever been afraid for me. They are only afraid of me." The confession hung in the air, heavy and fragile. Rachel leaned into his touch. It was instinctive. She had been alone for 3 years, a ghost in her own life. Now, in this dusty, broken apartment with a man who dealt in death, she felt violently alive. "I'm not afraid of you," she whispered. "You should be," Enzo said. His gaze dropped to her lips. He didn't rush. He moved slowly, giving her 1,000 chances to pull away. When he kissed her, it wasn't the frantic adrenaline-fueled collision of the alleyway. It was slow, deep. It tasted of whiskey, rain, and iron. It was a question and an answer all at once. Rachel's hands moved from his wound to his shoulders, gripping him, anchoring him. Enzo groaned low in his throat, pulling her up so she was straddling his lap, mindful of his injury, but desperate for her proximity. For a moment, the war outside ceased to exist. There was only the heat of their bodies and the dust motes dancing in the moonlight. Enzo pulled back, resting his forehead against hers. "If we survive this," he murmured, "I am never letting you go. You know that, right? There is no witness protection program that can hide you from me." "I know," Rachel said. She traced the scar on his eyebrow. "But we have to survive first." She climbed off his lap, the loss of contact making her shiver. She finished bandaging his leg with professional efficiency. "Rest," she ordered. "I'll take the first watch." Enzo lay back, watching her as she moved a chair to the window. He checked his gun one last time, placing it on his chest. "Rachel," he said. "Yes. You were right about the ring. You saw the mechanism. That makes you the most dangerous weapon I have." Rachel looked out at the rainy street below. "I'm not a weapon, Enzo. I'm a scientist." "In my world," Enzo said, his eyes finally closing as exhaustion took him. "There is no difference." Morning arrived in the safe house not with sunlight, but with a suffocating grey fog that rolled off Lake Michigan, pressing against the grime-streaked windows. Rachel woke to the metallic snick-click of a slide being racked. Enzo was sitting on the edge of the dusty sleeper sofa, his injured leg extended stiffly. He was dismantling his pistol, cleaning it with a strip of cloth torn from his ruined shirt. The vulnerability of the night before, the heat, the whispers, the shared breath had evaporated. In its place sat a soldier preparing for war. "The phone," Enzo said, nodding toward the burner on the table without looking up. "I made a call. The archivist is meeting us at noon." Rachel sat up, wrapping the woolen blanket around her shoulders. "The archivist. He keeps the records, the debts, the treaties, the laws." Enzo reassembled the weapon with blind familiarity. "We can't just kill Sal. If I put a bullet in his head today, the other 3 families will see it as a power grab. A civil war will burn Chicago to the ground. I need sanction. I need proof he broke the law. The poison, Rachel realized. Exactly. Poison is a coward's weapon, forbidden among the leadership. If we prove he used the ring, the commission strips him of his protection. Then he is mine. But the ring is on his finger, Rachel said. How do we get it? We don't need the ring. We need the source. Enzo stood wincing slightly as he put weight on his leg. Sal has a greenhouse at his estate in Lake Forest. He grows orchids, but aconite comes from the monkshood plant. If he's refining it himself, the equipment, the residue, the raw plants, they'll be in that glass house. A greenhouse, Rachel mused. She walked to the window, staring at the brick wall opposite. Getting into the estate will be suicide. He'll have 50 men. That's why we aren't going in as soldiers, Enzo said, moving to stand behind her. His reflection hovered over hers in the glass. We're going in as ghosts. The meeting took place in the skeletal remains of a rail yard on the south side. The archivist was a small, unassuming man who looked more like a librarian than a criminal fixture. He handed Enzo a tube of blueprints and a heavy duffel bag. Sal has become unstable, the archivist said, his voice dry as rust. Bad for business. Here are the schematics. Shift changes. A jammer for the gate frequency. But once you are inside, Lorenzo, you are on your own. Enzo unrolled the blueprints on the floor of a rusted train car. Rain drummed rhythmically against the metal roof. Here, Enzo pointed. The service entrance. There's a medical delivery every Tuesday at 2 p.m. Sal has a heart condition. He gets oxygen tanks and cryotherapy supplies. Rachel looked at the map, then at Enzo. A dangerous idea formed in her mind, reckless, terrifying, and perfect. We don't need to sneak past the delivery, she said softly. We need to be the delivery. Enzo looked at her. Hijack the van. I'll drive. Rachel said, her voice steady. I can talk my way past a guard. You can't. You're too recognizable, and you're injured. And where do I go? In the back, she said, inside a crate. Enzo stared at her. He saw the transformation. The terrified woman from the bar was gone. In her place was a partner who strategized like a capo. A slow, dark smile spread across his face. The Trojan horse, he murmured. He kissed her forehead, a seal of approval and a silent prayer. Let's go steal a van. 2 hours later, a white medical transport van rumbled down the long, winding driveway of the Moretti estate. The rain had turned the grounds into a muddy quagmire. Rachel sat in the driver's seat, wearing a stolen blue windbreaker and a cap pulled low. Her heart hammered against her ribs like a trapped bird, but her hands on the wheel were rock steady. She pulled up to the iron gate. A guard with an assault rifle stepped out of the booth, his face obscured by a rain poncho. Delivery, Rachel called out, holding up a clipboard through the open window. Oxygen and nitrogen refill for Mr. Moretti. The guard frowned. He didn't take the clipboard. He walked to the front of the van, peering at her. You're not Steve. Steve's out with the flu. Rachel lied effortlessly. I'm covering his route. Look, buddy, do you want to sign this, or do you want to explain to the Don why he can't breathe tonight? The guard hesitated. The authority in her voice made him pause. Open the back. Rachel's stomach dropped. It sealed medical equipment. Open the back. Rachel killed the engine. She stepped out into the rain, walking to the rear doors. She prayed Enzo was ready. She prayed the guard wouldn't look too closely at the wooden crate marked fragile. She threw the doors open. The van was filled with silver canisters and 2 large crates. The guard climbed in his boots, muddying the floor. He tapped the crate where Enzo lay, curled a suppressed pistol against his chest. "What's in here?" the guard asked, his hand reaching for the latch. "Liquid nitrogen," Rachel said sharply. "For the cryo chamber. Go ahead, open it. But if it depressurizes and burns your face off, don't sue me." The guard froze. He looked at the crate, then at Rachel's bored, annoyed expression. The threat of an invisible chemical burn was more frightening than a gun. He grunted and jumped down. "Fine. Go on through. Service entrance is round the back." "Thanks," Rachel said, slamming the doors shut. She climbed back into the driver's seat, her legs trembling so hard she could barely work the clutch. She drove through the gates, the heavy iron closing behind them, sealing them inside the lion's den. She parked the van in the shadow of the massive glass greenhouse. The structure glowed faintly from within, humid and opaque. She tapped on the partition. "We're in." The lid of the crate creaked open. Enzo emerged, unfolding his frame, his eyes cold and focused. He checked his weapon. "Stay in the van," he whispered. "No," Rachel said, grabbing her kit swab's vials a camera. "I need the sample. You watch my back. I get the poison." Enzo looked at her for a split second, then nodded. "Together." They stepped out into the rain, moving toward the glass walls, where the orchids and the death bloomed. The greenhouse smelled of wet earth, rotting sweetness, and death. Condensation dripped from the glass ceiling like sweat. Rachel moved through the jungle of orchids, her breath shallow. "There," she whispered, pointing to a workbench hidden behind a wall of ferns. It was undeniable. A mortar and pestle stained purple. A drying rack filled with Aconitum napellus monkshood, and a row of small glass vials filled with a clear, viscous liquid. "Proof," Enzo said, his voice grim. He raised his camera to take the photo. Click. Suddenly, floodlights blinded them. The hum of the ventilation system died, replaced by the ominous rack of assault rifles. "I expected better, Lorenzo." Sal's voice echoed from the shadows. The old man stepped out, flanked by 6 armed guards. He leaned on his cane, looking disappointed. "A delivery van." "It's so plebeian." Enzo stepped in front of Rachel, shielding her. "It got us in. And now it will carry you out in bags," Sal sneered. "Kill them. Make it messy." The guards raised their weapons. "Wait!" Rachel screamed. She didn't reach for a weapon. She reached for the workbench. She grabbed a large beaker sitting on a hot plate, a bubbling, concentrated reduction of the toxin. "This is pure aconite extract," she yelled, her voice trembling but loud. She held the beaker over the industrial steam vent on the floor. "If I drop this on the steam vent, it aerosolizes instantly. It will fill this room in 3 seconds. We won't just die, we will suffocate while our hearts explode." The guards hesitated. They looked at the bubbling liquid, then at the steam vent. They knew what poison could do. They had seen Sal's victims. "She's bluffing," Sal roared. "Shoot her. Try me." Rachel countered, her eyes wild. She tilted the beaker. A single drop hit the hot metal pipe with a hiss. "Does anyone want to bet their life on a chemist's bluff?" Panic flickered in the guard's eyes. The barrel of a rifle lowered just an inch. That inch was all Enzo needed. He moved faster than thought. Bang! Bang! 2 shots, 2 headshots. The 2 nearest guards dropped. The others scrambled, terrified of the gunfire and the poison in Rachel's hand. Enzo didn't stop. He surged forward, a wolf let loose. He disarmed a 3rd man, breaking his arm with a sickening crack, and used him as a shield. Sal turned to run, but his bad leg failed him. He stumbled into a bed of purple flowers. Enzo stood over him, the smoking gun in his hand. The remaining guards fled, unwilling to die for a falling king. Rachel set the beaker down carefully. Her hands were shaking now. "Lorenzo," Sal gasped, looking up from the mud. "Family. We are family." Enzo looked at Rachel. She wasn't looking away. She wasn't horrified. She was standing tall, the Emerald Queen who had held death in her hand to save him. "You're right, Uncle," Enzo said softly. "And the family needs to be pruned." He didn't shoot. He reached down, grabbed Sal's hand, the one with the ring, and twisted the mechanism open. He pressed the poisoner's ring against Sal's screaming mouth. "Drink," Enzo commanded. 1 month later. The music in Obsidian was deep and rhythmic. Rachel sat in the VIP booth, the same one where she had saved a life with a napkin. She wasn't wearing an apron. She was wearing silk. Enzo slid into the booth beside her. The entire club seemed to rotate around them. He took her hand, kissing the knuckles where a massive diamond now sat. "The commission is happy," Enzo murmured against her skin. "The city is quiet." "For now," Rachel said, taking a sip of her drink, a Negroni which she had made herself. Enzo smiled, that rare, shark-like grin that was only for her. "Let them come. We have the guns, and we have the poison." Rachel leaned back, the queen of the Chicago underworld. "Don't drink it," she whispered playfully. Enzo laughed and kissed her. "I only drink what you give me." And that is the story of how a single napkin toppled an empire. Rachel Vance went from pouring drinks to calling the shots, proving that in the world of the Mafia, the most dangerous weapon isn't a gun. It's the woman who knows exactly what's in your glass. They say behind every powerful man is a woman, but in Enzo Moretti's case, the woman is standing right beside him, and she's probably holding the antidote. Now I have a question for you. If you were in Rachel's shoes, would you have slipped that note, or would you have let the boss take the drink? Let me know in the comments below. I read every single one. If you enjoyed this twisty dark romance, please smash that like button. It helps the channel so much. And if you want more stories about dangerous men and the women who bring them to their knees, hit subscribe and ring that notification bell so you never miss a chapter. Thanks for watching, and remember, check your drink. See you in the next story.